So we all heard what happened with Donald Trump. He almost got assassinated. Imagine what would have happened if he got killed. Right now we'll be in chaos. Right now we'll be in the middle of a civil war. So that's what today's guest is going to tell us. The 10 things that you need to do in order for you to prepare for the worst, even though we have to hope for the best.
Just remember, when the shit hits the fan, everything, all the plans go to the wayside. And you got to be ready. You got to be able to be sharp, and you got to be able to act quickly and not be panicked and not allow that fear to come into you. Because when you have fear come into you, you've lost already.
If you get value from this podcast, make sure you subscribe and comment. Now, let's get into it. Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. Welcome to the King's Code Podcast. My name is Raul Velasquez, and today we have a very special guest because obviously we want to hope for the best, but we also have to prepare for the worst. We have here David Fusco. David, welcome to the King's Code Podcast. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Thank you, Raul. My name is David Fusco. If you're an American, Fusco, or Italian, or Latino, that's the way they say it. I just go with whatever works. Right now, I'm a certified public accountant in New York City and also in Pennsylvania. I have a background also on construction, and I have developments. But I also have a history in the United States military. In the 1970s and the early 80s, I was a United States Army Special Forces soldier, light weapons specialist, and my secondary MOS was radio operator supervisor. And I was assigned to an A team, ODA 216. And they came up with new designations. I was the old style where they had the S designation, if any military guys would know what I'm talking about. Now they have what's called an 18 series. Whatever, still the same thing, still the same type of unit. It's set up in 12-man teams. You have 2 of each specialty, just in case something happens to one guy in that area. And each man usually has at least 2 specialties so that you always have coverage. Just like you would say, and it's always good to have a plan. So there's a plan to have multiples of those multiples within that 12-man unit.
Yep. So obviously you and I go way back. We've been working together for the last, I believe, 5-6 years, part of the Inner Circle members here in the Edge Brotherhood. And we had a conversation this week with the guys of the Inner Circle, and we talked about the recent events. Donald Trump got almost assassinated, very close. This time it came very close. And the question was, how do we prepare for a civil war? How do we prepare for the worst case scenario? So I want to get your insight on what can a person watching this video do in order for them to prepare themselves for the worst scenario. Obviously, hope for the best. Let's root for the country. But in case shit hits the fan, what are the 10 things that they need to know and they need to do in order for them to prepare?
Well, I mean, if there's any one good takeaway, for lack of other ways of saying it, with that attempted assassination, it is that it's woken a lot of people up, regardless of what side of the aisle you want to sit on. A lot of people maybe still are, living in La La Land. And, well, if you're sitting in La La Land, you've got a big problem. And, what's interesting is you focused on the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, but things happen all the time. You've had Hurricane Katrina, which took out the southern part of the United States, Texas, Louisiana, and whatnot. People living in Superdome bowls, and lack of water, lack of filtration. You have hurricanes and tornadoes hitting different places in the United States. And the Northeast here, in New York, Connecticut was probably hit too. New Jersey, you had Storm Sandy not all that long ago. Here I am. I'm a guy that knows how to prepare. I had a generator, but I never took it out and assembled it. So by the time I got it out and I assembled it, I didn't need it anymore because it took about a day and a half. It's good to know what to do, but and have the things, but it's good to actually have practice with those things.
But you're right. It doesn't have to be a catastrophe like a civil war. It could be something like a hurricane. It could be something that allows you to have these survival skills. So give us 10 things. What's the first thing? I know you and I talked a little bit about how prepared. What's the first thing that people should have available in case something happens?
Well, the number one thing is mindset. That is the most important weapon. That's the most important tool that you have, is your mindset. There are effectively 3 types of people. Those who the fight, flight, or freeze. And that's an inbred thing that some people, it's inherent in them, and how they are genetically, let's say. You could be trained out of that, and that's like what the military does. One of the things the military does is like when I went to jump school, jumping out of an aircraft is not necessarily a natural thing to do. So what you do is the first week is you just learn practicing rolling on the ground, and you just do it over and over and over and over. Then you also learn how to get lined up and run out and jump out of the aircraft, and then the different things that you go through. So it becomes repetitive. By doing the things repetitive, it becomes second nature. And when it came to the actual jump, of course, you're still sending a prayer to God, hey, let me down, I'll make sure I won't do these things. But of course, you get to the ground and you go back to your old ways, hopefully not. It just becomes second nature. So mindset is the most important thing. You can develop mindset, you just need to gain confidence. Mindset is really a confidence thing.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I constantly teach my kids is just in moments of chaos, you got to stay calm. When shit's the fan, if you panic, if you run away, if you have fear, you're going to be prey. So you have to make sure that you always have the mindset of, okay, I'm going to figure things out. You stay cool, calm, collected to figure out what the next thing is.
Yeah.
So mindset is the number one thing. What's the second thing?
Well, the next most important thing in my belief is your physical capability. Look, I'm 65 now, and I'm not 18, 19, 20-year-old Green Beret anymore. Back then I was doing just a touch under a 5-minute mile with combat boots. Now I'm lucky if I can look at what a mile is. And there's a big difference. And, so you need to get your physical body up into the best shape as you can. That's endurance, in my belief, is the most important thing. You could be strong, but if you don't have endurance to last a long time, then you got a problem. Actually, if I'm not wrong, it's one of the best human traits is different animals can outrun human beings. Yeah. Almost every animal can. But humans have one feature: they're long distance runners. So you can easily build up the endurance to run long distances for long times in all kinds of weather conditions, be they cold or hot, where a lot of other animals don't have that capability. So that's an inbred thing. Of course, you've got to develop it yourself. It's not just, hey, I can, run that 5-minute mile. You got to build up to it. So endurance, your physical capabilities, and your body in general. And one of the things that you must pay attention to, we'll call this 2A, or 2B, I should say, is that, if you have any physical ailments, whatever that might be, you got bad teeth, you've got, eyesight difficulties, whatever it might be, other medical conditions, tennis elbow, get that squared away, get to the dentist, take care of those things, because right now you can. When the things are shut down, if the systems are shut down, you're not doing anything about that. And a lot of illnesses come from, your mouth and your tooth and your teeth injuries. So, get things squared away. Don't put them off. Yeah, I know, I don't want to come up with the money now. Well, you know what? Even if the things don't get bad, it's cheaper now until later. If you wait too long, it's not, it might get cheaper because they'll just pull it out. Now you don't have a tooth. So, you got to pay attention to your physical being, your mental status, your physical status, and then your other health conditions. And if you have yourself or members in your family or friends or in your community that have other medical needs, make sure you have extra medications. Yeah. When the system's shut down, when the supply chain locks up and you can't get maintenance medicines, whatever it might be, you've got a problem.
It's a great point. Besides mindset, health is wealth. You got to make sure you maintain your health. I mean, that was a great point that we discussed, like getting your teeth done, making sure you go to the doctor, get yourself checked out, and have extra medicine. Because if things get shut down in the middle of a civil war, middle of chaos, you're not going to have access to it.
Yeah.
What's the third thing? Yeah,
another thing is information. Actually, let's change that from information to, which goes in line with information, is communications and a plan. So work them either which way. So let's say the plan really is let's say you want to plan for a catastrophic event, whatever it might be, the zombie apocalypse. It could be anything, a storm. It could be that Civil War thing. know your community, know the people around you, know what they're, how they think and you think. Communicate with your family, come up with a plan. Where do you live? Are you in a heavy populated area? Well, heavy populated areas potentially going to have a lot more problem because you have more people. I remember reading a book, and it was about the Soviet Union times, and Stalin had, I guess he wanted more revenues or whatever, and he removed a lot of the wheat production from the Ukrainians, and millions of them starved to death. And there were signs in the cities, in Kiev and whatnot, it is not proper to eat your children. So could you imagine that? Wow. That, to remind people of something like that? So, yes, being prepared is important, and having a plan to get out of heavy populated areas, whatever that might mean. Now, if you've done no planning, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? How are you going to get there? And that's the other part that is combined with that. What's your plan to getting there? So let's say you have an aunt or an uncle that lives outside of the city limits and they're in a good rural area. How do you get there? There's no GPS. How do you travel there? What happens if you don't want to go on the main thoroughfares? What are the tertiary, secondary, tertiary, or even local roads to drive around and get through? What happens if you live in an area where there's water hazards in front of you, streams, rivers, oceans, whatever it might be? Well, maybe not an ocean, you've got a problem. But, you got to get across a river. How are you going to get across that river? If are there ways, let's say, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, there's a river system in between the two. Some areas you're not going to be able to cross. They're just too deep unless you have a boat or a bridge. Some areas you will be able to. Keep in mind, depending on the level of the catastrophe, you may have people from those areas securing those bridges and not allowing people to come into their zone. They're not going to want to have tens of millions of people flooding out of the heavy populated areas into their communities that are in farmlands and whatnot. So keep all that in mind. How are you going to get to that location? But if you don't even have to get that far out into zombie land. But let's say you just have a relative that lives outside the city limits. How do you get there? What do you do? And then combined with that is the communications. How do you communicate? Depending on what happens, let's say you have an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, that's going to take out the electric grid potentially, and that's going to take out communications. What do you do? How do you communicate? If you don't have communications, that makes it difficult. What's your plan? Everyone should have a plan to where they're going to go and how they're going to get there, and they should practice that plan. Get in the car. I mean, everyone's gotten reliant upon the GPS. I used to, as a kid, when I learned to drive, there was no such thing as a GPS back when they had the horse and buggy. And so you drove around and you figured out how to go, and you get lost, and I know, and then you hit a landmark, and you okay, now I know where I am, and you keep moving forward until you get to where you're going to go. Now you just click the button as the GPS. There are areas that I go to that I know commonly how to get there, but now I start using the GPS. Why? Because that's it's conditioned. Yeah, and I've literally forgotten some of those routes, and then go back to the old status, and then also alternate routes to get to those locations. So, in combination with where to go and how to have, and that plan, how do you execute that plan? And communication is important. One of the things that you might want to get is a shortwave system. Keep in mind, with the shortwave system, legally in the United States, you need an FCC communications license. It's not a big deal. You have to take a test, and you get a call sign assigned to you by the FCC, and now you can use shortwave radios. These little radios that you get at, Best Buy or Radio Shack or whatever, they're line of sight, meaning if there's any obstructions in the way, it's not getting through that obstruction, and you're not going to be able to communicate. Where the way shortwave works is it bounces off the stratosphere or ionosphere or whatever wave you're using, and that'll you can get much better communication signals. I mean, you could literally communicate around the world with that.
I mean, that's crucial. Every single person should have that if they want to prepare.
Yeah.
Know how read a map. Get yourself a route, and make sure that you don't rely on GPS system or technology to communicate.
Yeah, in the back of my car pocket seat, I have the atlas map of all the roads in the United States. I don't plan on traveling around the United States in that case, in case there's a problem. But you know what? GPS don't work. Pop open a map, learn, you know how to read it, learn how to, find locations on that map and how to get yourself from point A to point B in the best way. And then if there's blockages or roadblocks within the way, learn alternate routes to get around.
Yeah, I think the young people right now, they have no idea what an atlas is. They have no idea what a map is. They're so used to the phone. I remember when I learned how to drive, I was using a map. I was using Atlas.
Yeah.
And then we got MapQuest. I don't remember.
Yeah.
Print out the MapQuest before the GPS.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have mindset, we have health, we have communications, and learning how to travel. What's the fourth thing?
Well, now we're into the more survival areas. Those are the things for the immediate trauma of the event, right? You got to have a good, solid mindset. You got to have good health. You've got to be able to know where you're going to go and be able to communicate. The next thing is just the plain old survival. People like to use the 3-day rules: 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, 3 months without shelter, or something like that. But you know what? It's 3 days. Maybe you can squeeze a little more out of it, or less, depending on if it's 110 degrees out and you're exerting your energy. You're going to lose water. And we're 70% water, give or take. So you don't have water, you're going to start getting fatigued faster. You're not going to be able to move as well. Your cognitive functions are going to decline, and you're going to have a problem getting living. Next is food. People would say, but you know what I say? Shelter / environmental is a better way to say it. So I'm going to die a lot faster from hypothermia than I am going to from a lack of food. And people think, well, it's the summer months. Well, okay, go into the mountains in the summer months and the temperature drops down to 50 degrees, 45 degrees, and you freeze to death. You freeze to death. And, so, what kind of clothing do you have? In the back of my truck, I keep a couple of wool blankets. I get stuck on the road, at least I've got something to give me some kind of warmth. So that's important. So to me, number one is water. And that means, ready, drinkable, portable water. That also means the ability to have water filtration. There are certain simple things you can get, something called Life Straw.
Yeah, you gave me one of those one time.
Yeah.
You could just put it in any water and it filters and makes it drinkable water.
Yeah, you stick it in a mud pile, drink it, and boom, you're okay. What I would do, though, is I would let someone else test it and make sure they're okay. And then if they're okay, you're good to go. That's the better part of being
That's the rule. There's a rule. Survival. The survival of the fittest.
Yeah. Sorry, Joe. That puddle's no good. Let's try the next one. Water and portable water, and then some kind of filtration. And there's different levels. There's like the Life Straw, and then you can have other things. And then if you want, get some, I'm gonna bring that up now. Is books, physical books that tell you how to do things. Because if the the electronics are down, where are you going to get your information from? You could buy books on homeopathic medicine. You could buy books on how to get water out of the atmosphere. Pretty much, you could get all kinds of different things. I remember making like these little drip tents where you put a thing with dirty water in it. And you have like a little plastic tent with a little string going down, and then the water evaporates and it drips down and it goes into a little cup. Slow as heck, but you know what? Better than nothing.
Yeah.
Better than nothing. So learn these different skills, and if you don't have them or whatever, and practice them if you can. Buy books so that you have physical knowledge available to you at any point in time, and you're not going to be reliant on an electronic system. The other thing, too, I've also felt with electronic systems and electronic books is, well, the printed book that's it. There's the print. Electronic, you could change it at any time, so the data can be changed. Now, why would someone do it? I don't know. Why would somebody do anything? They have an agenda or whatever the case might be. So having physical information to help you augment. So, and then of course food. You need food. You could buy long-term storage food. Certain food, not even long-term storage foods, last forever. If I'm not wrong, they found honey, dehydrated honey in the pyramids, thousands of years old. Hydrate it. It's just as well. And actually, honey is a natural antibacterial. Learn crazy things like, you look at some of those middle-aged movies and like they put maggots on a wound. Well, you know what? They only eat dead flesh. So you put the maggots on the wound and it'll eat the dead flesh, and now it's got a clean wound, and you're less likely to get, an infection in that area. So all kinds of strange things that you might think were strange. Well, there's been generations before us that survived without all the modern facilities and that we have. And these things do work, although they may sound strange to us today.
And I think that you're right. There's other generations that survive, catastrophes and wars, etc. But it has to do a lot with experience too. I think that this generation has been too comfortable. There's a lot of weak men. It's a lot of men who don't know how to survive, how to hunt, how to get food, how to hunt for your food. So I think that's a key part: learning how to hunt for food, learning how to get your own food. Don't rely. There's not going to be no stores open if shit hits the fan. There's not going to be Uber Eats going into your house.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to hunt, how to have food.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of things are food that you wouldn't think. I was in survival training, and you'll eat bugs.
Well, when you're hungry, you probably eat anything,
You'll
right?
eat anything, yeah. But you got to be careful what you eat. I mean, there was one guy at the unit who just kept eating berries and berries and berries, and he ended up getting the dysentery type of thing.
Wow.
And if you go in, if you just failed, and if you want to do it, you got to start over from the very beginning again. So he we only had one pair of clothes with us, so he was a mess the whole time.
Wow.
And when we left the field, he was in the back of the truck, and everyone was crowded, and he had plenty of space. Yeah.
So then, just to get it straight, number 5 was education, books. Number 6 was food. What's number 7?
Well, you again, before you even get into that, you mentioned something about the weakness of people. And when Storm Sandy hit New York, the power was out, the cell towers were out. And I remember walking around the local community where my office is, and there was a young man there, I don't know, he was in his early 20s, and he had his cell phone out, and he was touching it, and he's talking to himself going, I can handle this. This is okay, I can deal with this. I mean, that's not a good mindset. You got to be willing to accept the situation you're in.
Yeah.
No matter what's happening, that I don't even know what you call that. That's total fear, total lack of control.
You have a lot of people,
Yeah.
a lot of people who don't know how to react to adversity.
Yeah.
Without their phones, they lose themselves.
They lose themselves. Yeah. I think the next important thing, again, there's a pyramid, and this next thing could be number 1 on the list in the right circumstances: the ability to protect yourself.
Weapons.
Yeah, weapons, and the knowledge of how to use those weapons. Thank God in the United States we have something called the Second Amendment, which means you're allowed to own arms, weapons to protect yourself and your family. And just like when I had this little short story I gave about that generator that I had it, but it wasn't even put together, and I didn't even know how to use it. And by the time I figured it out, it wasn't needed anymore. So if you're going to have a weapon and you've not been trained on it, then you need to get some training on it and how to use it, how to load it, how to clean it, how to take it apart and put it together. You don't have to do it where, you're doing it in the dark, like that. But,
You have to know the basics.
You know the basics of how to use it. And you also need to have it. I don't know if anybody owns weapons and they buy ammunition, but ammunition has gotten extremely expensive. I have a particular box of ammo I bought, I don't know, around 8-9 years ago, and there's a price tag on it, $129. That same box of ammo ranges, depending on where you are and if there's a sale or whatever, between $569 and $869. That's also something of value, It's gone up in value. It's gone up in value more than a lot of things, maybe even the stock market. I don't know, got to do the ratio.
If you look at it, a lot of that's going to be valuable. What do you get by having a gun if you don't have ammo?
You've got a club,
Yeah.
And it's not even a very good club because it's awkward. Weapons and other tools if you want to use that, and they don't have to be weapons, So other tools if you want to add that as a separate item or combination, whether it's a knife, and people think a knife is for battling. No, a knife is actually very useful. You can dig holes with it. You can cut things with it. You can chop, you're not going to chop down an oak tree, but you're going to chop down, saplings or whatever, so you can make things, with that tool, shovels.
So I think that would be the 8th, which is tools.
Yeah, tools.
Right? Because, 7th is weapons. You have to make sure you protect yourself. 8 will be tools.
Yep.
You got to have tools. You have to be able to build, to fix certain things.
Yeah, and the knowledge of how to use it. If you're going to have a community, let's say you're developing a group of people to all get together, what are they bringing to the table? Are they going to bring their stress and anxieties? Or are they going to bring something? Hey, I'm a medical doctor. Come on in, Hey, I know how to, make YouTube videos.
So that's the 8th part. The 8th would be make sure you have the right community, the right people around you.
Yeah.
The 8th step is like get around people who are going to bring certain services in case things happen. You have a doctor, you have a nurse, you have somebody in your network,
someone who can build and fix things, someone who can repair engines. I have a property in a rural area in Pennsylvania, and I bought a bulldozer. Is old 19, oh God, I don't know, it's like 30, 40 years old, and simple, not for me, I don't have that skill set, but the guy that's the contractor for me, he jumped up there, fixed this, fixed that, pulled this off, pulled that off. Diesel engines are extremely simple, and if you understand them, versus, you open up something now, even the diesel vehicles now, that's got all kinds of chemical treatments and, so they're not going to function that well. Where these old stuff, the old things actually will. And I went out and I bought a year 2000 Ford F-350 diesel engine because I wanted something that I could probably pour kerosene into if I had to and make it move. You have to have the knowledge to do that. Yeah. So that's number 8. What's number 9? Well, of course, your community, we just talked about.
So let's come up with, we need 2 more, number 9 and 10.
Yeah, I had them in my head as I was talking, but then I took myself off that tangent there.
So 9 will be...
Talk about weapons. There's a million things. Oh, I could tell you something else. Another thing that you might want is, what do you do? Okay, it's not, once you've gotten yourself out of that traumatic situation, once you've gotten yourself hopefully to a safe place, what do you do? There's no power, let's say. It gets dark at 5 p.m. It's now the winter months. It's going to stay dark till, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever it might be. What do? It could get pretty damn boring. And boringness can lead into problems. What is that? The idle hands or the devil's workshop? So what I also have is I have a bunch of board games and I have books. So something that, again, if it's all on a digital format, what are you going to do? By having books. And it could be books that you can learn things from, which we talked about before, but it could also be just, fantasy books. It could be, chess sets. It could be Monopoly games. Something to keep the morale of the place up. You want to keep up your morale, and that's very important. Yeah.
I think that is key because people don't understand that once technology is out, and in situations like this, technology may be out, you need to make sure that you know what to do with your time. You need to make sure that you know how to communicate, how to talk, how to have social skills, maybe, play an instrument, maybe entertainment, maybe conversations. I mean, like when people get together on the bonfire, it's a way to communicate, to connect. I think we live in a world where it's too much of social media, the disconnect, that they don't actually talk to each other. So number 10, what's that number 10?
Number 10. I mean, there's probably 10,000.
I'll tell you what I look at for me, the number 10. Number 10 would be don't lose faith.
Yeah.
Don't lose faith. Because I think that in situations where there's adversity, the person that has the most hope, the person that has the most faith has the best chance of survival.
Yeah.
Look at this, a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever. Like, we've been here before. Many people have survived catastrophes. We're not the last. We're not the first ones or the last ones.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. And, and that goes to the mindset part, but it's a deeper thing than the mindset part. And, you have to believe in a higher being in yourself. And you got to remember, this is all just a temporary human experience. And that, I'm going to live forever. There's no, you're not going to live forever. You're going to live for whatever you live to, and that's it. 100 years from now, you'll be lucky if anyone remembers you even existed. So the other thing, too, when relying to that is, is going back to the military, when you're in that aircraft getting ready to jump, you got a stick of guys, as they call it, a stick, whatever that aircraft might be, different amounts of men, 40, 50, 60 or more in the bigger aircraft. And everyone gets there and you sit there, you're all ready to go, you're sitting on your seat, and a lot of guys are like this. They're not sleeping. They're praying their asses off.
Yeah.
So, there's, you need that, and that gives you the extra oomph to be willing to go ahead and step out into that open air and not be afraid. And it's the same thing, when things happen that are outside of your control, and keeping calm. It helps you to keep calm. If you're the center of calmness, the people around you are going to stay calm, especially if you're the leader. If you as the leader starts panicking, everyone's going to panic and it's going to fall apart.
And that's it. Number 10 is have faith and be a leader. When things happen in your life that don't match your expectations, when there's catastrophe, there is chaos, when there's adversity, then leaders have to show up. The leaders have to take charge. So if you're watching this video right now, just prepare yourself for the worst. Hope for the best, but you never know. You always have to prepare. David, thank you, brother. Appreciate you. You gave us tons of information. You shared so much of your knowledge. Thank you for the service that you've done in this country. And I hope that we don't get to experience the worst, that we take advantage of the best that this country has. But I know if Shay's the fan, I'm going to you, brother. I'm going to you. Wherever you are going, that's where I'm going.
Just remember, whatever it is, enjoy the ride either way. It's just one. It's only a short trip that we have on this.
That's it. And you have to remember, the best is yet to come. Learn it, live it, experience it. Love life.